It's a beautiful thing when someone shows interest in us, especially at the beginning of something new. Those early stages of connection are filled with excitement, curiosity, and that sense of wonder about where it could all lead. And in today's world, one of the primary ways we measure that interest is through texting. It's often the first thing we look at in the morning and the last thing we check before bed. But while it may seem casual on the surface, texting habits speak volumes about where you truly stand in someone's life. When a man is genuinely interested, he finds a way to keep the connection alive, not just when it's convenient, but consistently, even in small moments throughout his day. You'll notice that with certain people, texting never feels like a guessing game. There's a natural flow to the communication. He responds in a timely manner, not out of obligation, but out of eagerness to continue the interaction. You don't sit there wondering if your message was too much or if you should have waited longer to reply. His consistency becomes a quiet reassurance, a sign that he's thinking about you even when you're not in the same room. He might not always respond instantly, but the rhythm doesn't disappear. And that rhythm says more than any emoji or sweet word ever could. But when a man's texting pattern is full of gaps, delays, and sudden disappearances, it's easy to get caught in your head. You start wondering if you said something wrong or if he's just really busy. And sure, life gets hectic. We all have responsibilities, work, family, things that pull our attention away. But when someone truly values you, they find little ways to show you that you matter. A simple, "can't talk now, but I'll message later," speaks volumes. Silence, on the other hand, doesn't always mean absence. It often means prioritization and where you fall on that list. There's an emotional cost to waiting. Waiting for a message that never comes on time. Waiting for him to initiate instead of always being the one to do so. Over time, that waiting chips away at your self-worth, even if you don't realize it right away. You begin to adjust your expectations. You tell yourself that he's just not a big texter, or that you're probably overthinking it. But when someone's communication leaves you feeling uncertain, anxious, or not enough, it's worth paying attention to that. Because the truth is, someone who truly wants to build something real with you won't leave you guessing every other day. When a man is clear in his intentions, you feel it in how he shows up. He doesn't just reply when prompted, he reaches out. He creates moments for connection instead of reacting to them. And even if he's not a master of words, he uses the tools he has, timely responses, consistent tone, thoughtfulness, to communicate that you are not an afterthought. His communication has structure, reliability, and care. He respects your time and your emotional bandwidth. That kind of consistency isn't just nice, it's necessary. It allows the relationship to move from potential to possibility. Sometimes the hardest thing to accept is that inconsistency in communication isn't a neutral act. It's a message. And the message often says, "This is as much as I'm willing to give right now." It's not always malicious. Sometimes people are genuinely not ready, not sure, or emotionally distracted. But no matter the reason, inconsistency forces you into a place where you're constantly trying to decode something that should feel easy. And you deserve more than a puzzle. You deserve peace, not the anxiety of wondering if you're being too much for simply expecting a reply from someone who says they care. It's a beautiful sign when a man's messages go beyond the basics. When he doesn't just text to make plans, but to genuinely connect, it opens a door to something deeper. The difference is in the substance. Instead of, "What time should we meet?" it becomes, "How was that meeting you were nervous about?" Or, "I heard this song and thought of you." That shift from logistical to emotional content tells you everything about where his heart is or isn't. Because how someone communicates reveals more than just what they want to do with you. It reveals what they want to build with you. When a man is emotionally present, he engages with your inner world, not just your outer schedule. He's not texting you to pass time. He's reaching for real connection. He remembers things you said days ago and brings them up again because he's paying attention. It doesn't matter if it's something small like your favorite snack or something deeper like your dreams or fears, he hears you. That ability to reference past conversations shows he isn't just scrolling through your messages, he's actually thinking about you when you're not there. That's not an accident. That's emotional presence. You'll notice he starts to create a shared language between the two of you. Inside jokes, little callbacks to moments you've shared, playful teases that feel personal. These are signs he's not just chatting, he's bonding. And bonding is what emotionally available people do when they care. They let you into their day, their thoughts, their feelings, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's not. If he's able to say, "Today was rough," or "I've been thinking a lot about something lately," that's emotional risk. And where there's risk, there's investment. By contrast, when a man stays in surface-level conversations for too long, it becomes a quiet signal. He might text frequently, but if it's always vague, playful, or purely physical in tone, it's worth noticing. Not every message needs to be deep and serious, but if there's no curiosity about who you are beyond your photos and your availability, there's no emotional ground being built. A man who doesn't ask questions about your life, your opinions, your experiences isn't withholding because he's shy. He may simply not be offering that layer of himself, which can mean he's not emotionally open in the way a real relationship requires. There's also something to be said about how he responds when you bring something meaningful to the conversation. If you open up about a tough day and he changes the subject or keeps it light, that avoidance says something. It says he's not ready or willing to go there with you. But when he leans in with empathy, even if he doesn't have the perfect response, it shows he's present with you in the moment. Emotional availability isn't about knowing all the right words. It's about wanting to be where you are emotionally, not just physically or conversationally. When a man begins to share parts of himself without being prompted, his fears, past experiences, values, or goals, that's another key sign. Vulnerability isn't always loud. It might come through in stories about childhood, lessons he's learned, or thoughts he's reflecting on. These aren't just casual texts. They're windows into the kind of depth he's comfortable having. And if he offers that freely, it usually means he's not afraid of being seen. In fact, he wants to be seen by you, and he wants to see you too. And that mutual exposure is where emotional connection truly lives. It always feels good when someone takes the first step. That moment when your phone lights up, not because you followed up, but because someone thought of you on their own. It matters. It's not about being old-fashioned or keeping score. It's about recognizing effort. When a man initiates the conversation, it's a subtle but powerful message. I want to talk to you. That energy, that motivation to connect doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from interest, and interest is never an accident. In the early stages of getting to know someone, communication is like a dance. Both people have a chance to take the lead, to show intention. If you're always the one starting the conversation, planning when to talk, or trying to keep the momentum alive, you start to feel it. That imbalance weighs on you slowly. It's not just about texting. It's about the emotional labor of constantly wondering where you stand. And when one person is doing all the reaching, the relationship begins to lean instead of stand on equal ground. When a man is truly drawn to you, he makes it known through his actions. You don't have to nudge him to get a message or wait hours before he decides to respond. Instead, he comes to you, unprompted, consistently. It's not just about good manners or being polite. It's about showing you that you're on his mind. Maybe he sends a funny meme, maybe it's a quick check-in, or even a thoughtful, "How's your day going?" These aren't grand gestures, but they're honest ones. And those little moments add up to a very clear picture of where his energy is going. You start to notice the pattern when you pause and reflect. If you scroll back through the messages and see a trail of you initiating every single time, it's worth considering what that pattern means. It doesn't necessarily mean he isn't interested at all, but it might suggest he's not motivated enough to create space for you in his life. That's not about blame, it's about recognition, because healthy communication is a two-way street. You want someone who's excited to talk to you, not just responsive when you put in the effort. Sometimes we convince ourselves that initiating all the time is a sign of confidence or modern independence. And while there's nothing wrong with showing interest, the consistency of your energy deserves to be met. A relationship that's always fueled by one person's effort becomes exhausting over time. You shouldn't have to convince someone to care or to participate. You shouldn't have to train them to see your value. The people who are meant to be in your life will naturally move toward you without needing a push. One of the clearest signs of emotional investment is when someone starts conversations because they genuinely want to, not because they feel obligated. They ask how you're doing, they follow up on things you mentioned, and they bring you into their day, even in small ways. When someone wants you in their life, they don't leave the door halfway open. They send a message that says, "You matter to me," not just through words, but through presence. And presence shows up most clearly in who reaches out, not just who replies. It's a wonderful feeling when someone takes a genuine interest in who you are. Not just what you look like, not just what you're doing, but who you really are beneath the surface. One of the clearest signs of that kind of interest is found in the questions he asks. Questions show curiosity. They reflect effort. They're an invitation into deeper connection. When a man asks you thoughtful questions, he's saying, "I want to know you, not just talk at you." You start to feel the difference early on. Some conversations feel like you're pulling teeth, while others flow effortlessly because the other person actually wants to be there with you. He's not just replying with short answers or emojis. He's asking, "What do you think?" or "How did that make you feel?" Those kinds of questions show presence. They tell you he's not texting just for the sake of it. He's not going through the motions. He's genuinely interested in what's going on in your world. And that kind of emotional investment is something that can't be faked. When a man cares, he remembers things. He doesn't just ask once and forget, he circles back. If you mentioned a job interview, he follows up. If you told him about a family situation, he checks in. These aren't grand declarations of love, but they are quiet acts of attention. And attention is the foundation of emotional connection. It tells you that your words don't disappear into thin air. They land somewhere. They stay with him. That's how you know the conversation means something more than just a way to pass time. You'll also notice that the quality of his questions deepens over time. In the beginning, maybe it's, "What kind of music do you like?" Later, it becomes, "What kind of life do you want?" Or, "What's something most people don't know about you?" These are the kinds of questions that make you stop and think, and they come from someone who isn't afraid of going a little deeper. He's not just interested in keeping things light and easy, he wants real connection, and that starts with giving you space to express who you are beyond the basics. By contrast, when a man avoids asking questions altogether or only sticks to shallow topics, it's often a quiet sign that he's not emotionally available. It might feel like the conversation is moving, but you begin to realize you're not actually being seen. You're just being responded to. There's a difference between someone who wants to keep you entertained and someone who wants to understand you. And the difference lies in whether he opens doors with his curiosity or keeps everything behind a closed wall of surface talk. Sometimes the silence is the answer. If you're always the one offering stories, sharing parts of yourself, making the conversation meaningful, while he simply responds without matching that effort, it's worth paying attention. Real engagement doesn't mean he has to ask 20 questions a day. It means he's leaning into the conversation. It means he listens and responds in ways that show he's emotionally present. A man who truly wants to connect won't let every message be a dead end. He'll use his words to build something, step by step, because he actually wants to go somewhere with you. It's encouraging when someone shows interest in you. At first, even the smallest gestures can feel meaningful. A morning text, a random check-in, a thoughtful reply when you least expect it. These are the moments that spark hope, that whisper the possibility of something real. But over time, patterns matter more than moments. When that sweet attention becomes unpredictable, when the energy fluctuates without explanation, it's not just a shift in habit, it's a form of communication. Because how someone shows up or doesn't tells you exactly where their mind and heart are. One day he might be warm, engaging, present, sending messages that light up your day and make you feel seen. The next, it's like he's disappeared into thin air. No text, no check-in, no explanation. That swing between closeness and distance can leave you feeling confused, even doubting yourself. You wonder if you did something wrong, if you were too much, if you expected too soon. But often, inconsistency isn't about your actions at all. It's a reflection of where he is emotionally and how clearly or unclearly he's able to communicate it. People don't always know how to express their uncertainty, so they express it through mixed signals. One week he makes plans enthusiastically, the next he's vague or unavailable. This unpredictability creates a subtle emotional tug-of-war. You feel drawn in by his better moments and left hanging when those moments vanish without warning. This emotional contrast becomes a cycle that's hard to break, because when someone is inconsistent, you cling to the good days and dismiss the bad ones. You hold on to the hope of what could be rather than accepting what is. You may find yourself doing the emotional math, trying to figure out what each message means, how long between texts, why today feels different from yesterday. It's draining, but you keep trying because there was a connection, even if it's only there half the time. But real connection isn't a part-time visitor. It doesn't appear only when it's convenient, and when someone's behavior makes you feel uncertain more often than safe. It's not your imagination. That inconsistency is telling you something, even if it's wrapped in charm and chemistry. What often makes this dynamic confusing is that the moments of connection can feel so real. And maybe they are real in that moment. But a moment isn't a measure of commitment. Reliability is. Presence is. When someone truly wants to be part of your life, they don't show up in flashes. They show up with rhythm, with intentionality, with care that you can count on. That doesn't mean perfect communication every day. It means that when they can't be present, they let you know. They create clarity, not confusion. Inconsistency can feel like mystery, but more often it's just a gentle way of saying someone isn't ready or isn't choosing to prioritize you. It doesn't make them unkind or dishonest. It simply means that what they're offering doesn't match what you need. And that's okay to recognize, because the right connection won't keep you guessing. It will make you feel calm, not anxious, steady, not uncertain. And when someone is truly emotionally available, their words and actions begin to align. That alignment is what allows trust to grow. There's a quiet cost that comes with chasing clarity in someone's mixed signals. You find yourself analyzing texts, checking timestamps, rereading conversations just to feel secure again. And even though part of you senses something's off, another part keeps holding on to those brief, beautiful moments that felt right. That push and pull becomes addictive. It gives you just enough hope to stay, but never enough consistency to feel certain. And that kind of emotional roller coaster isn't harmless. It slowly teaches you to question your worth every time the pattern repeats. Often when someone is inconsistent, it's not because they don't know how to text or because they're too busy. It's usually because they're unsure of what they want, or they don't want to face the discomfort of saying it outright. So they linger in between. Not fully in, not fully out. And the truth is, even if they're confused, their actions still tell a very clear story. That silence between texts, that sudden drop in enthusiasm, that forgotten message thread, those are messages too. They may not be spoken, but they are felt. You deserve communication that doesn't leave you guessing. You deserve to feel like someone is choosing you, not just checking in when they're bored, lonely, or unsure of what else to do. When someone is inconsistent, it teaches you to shrink your expectations. You start telling yourself that maybe this is normal, that you shouldn't expect too much, that wanting regular communication is needy. But love, when it's healthy and intentional, never punishes you for having needs. It rises to meet them, not perfectly, but willingly. Sometimes the hardest part of dealing with inconsistency is letting go of the potential. You saw glimpses of something special. He can be warm, he can be thoughtful, he can make you feel like the only person in the room. But when someone is inconsistent, you're building your hopes on exceptions instead of the rule. And no matter how lovely those exceptions are, they aren't enough to build a safe emotional home. Because what creates security in any relationship is not just connection. It's repetition. It's the reliability that teaches your nervous system to relax in someone's presence. That's why it's so important to notice how often you feel calm versus how often you feel confused. Peace is not a luxury in relationships. It's a signal. A man who wants to build something real with you won't stir up more doubt than trust. He won't be here today, gone tomorrow. He won't leave you carrying the weight of keeping the relationship alive. He'll be someone whose communication gives you room to be yourself without constantly wondering if today is the day it all disappears again. In the end, it's not about whether someone is capable of texting every day or making grand gestures. It's about whether their presence feels stable, whether they show up when it matters, whether their words and actions walk in the same direction, and when they don't, when the pattern is more distance than closeness, more doubt than reassurance, you don't need to wait for more evidence. Inconsistency is its own answer, and while it may be hard to accept, it also frees you to stop chasing clarity from someone who keeps whispering their truth in everything they don't say.